Dave Hodges.
Hello.
Hey, Dave. Daniel Ott here.
Hey, Daniel. Good to talk to you.
Hey, welcome back to the Edge Television Broadcast. Dave, when I need to get an update on the geopolitical meltdown worldwide, I've got to get you on the line.
Well, I'm really happy to be here.
Well, welcome back, Dave. It's always a blast to have you on the show because you and I is like the quintessential iron sharpening iron. Hopefully, I won't talk over you because I'm pumped, I'm amped, I'm ready to throw down to talk about some of these issues tonight. But and that, by the way, I stole that from a Saturday Night Live parody of Ben Carson. So.
Okay, well I'm in good company then. Thank you.
All right. Hey, have you seen any of the Saturday Night Live parodies of the GOP?
A little bit, but I have to tell you, the media as a whole, up until very, very recently, has been so prejudiced, so anti-Trump, and really so unprofessional. I don't really even pay attention to them anymore.
Mm-hmm. By the way, I need to give a shout out to Maria. I can't pronounce your last name, Maria, but I'm giving you a shout out. One of our live chatters pointed out. I always like to give a shout out to people in our live chat. And by the way, Dave, as you know, those folks in the live chat send us in questions through that format, and they also send them in through our Fast Blast link. But you're right about the media. Man, is there a war going on against the attempted overthrow of the status quo? And of course, at the head of that overthrow appears to be Donald Trump. But really, is he really maybe just the development of the society as a whole, that those that have known that the system is a fraud to begin with? Have we sort of created him in a certain way? And is he a projection of a large segment of disgruntled Americans? Or how do you look at that?
That's a brilliant way to phrase that question. And you know, there's so many different ways to answer that too. It's like a mosaic rug. First of all, if Donald Trump's candidacy is real, and I can make a case the other way that it's not. It's a setup designed to usher in Hillary Clinton. But if it's real, and I tend to fall on the side that it is real, you know, when you look at Trump, let's just assume we're going to take him at face value, okay? And nothing is ever quite as simple as it seems to be. But he is, you know, getting up there in age, and he's got family members and kids and grandkids, and he may have had an attack of conscience. And he may say that what we're doing might be making me some money, but it's wrecking the lives of the people around me that I care about, and their children and their children's children have nothing to look forward to but pure misery. Mm-hmm. And this may have motivated him. And when I look at the Trump campaign, I've really narrowed it down into two primary issues with a lot of sub-issues to accompany them. One of them is the one thing that I have been yelling and screaming about since the 90s, and that's the free trade agreements, where our corporations, through their unbridled greed, have been allowed to wreck lives, bankrupt people, and shut down factories and wreck cities while they ship jobs off to cheap labor markets. And then they use their wad of cash to bribe Congress, and it's bribery, even though we call it campaign contributions, to allow them to bring their products back in duty-free. And because the labor is so darn cheap, they undersell the existing corporations that are here, their competition, and they drive them out of business. So we got this self-perpetuating self-destruction going on called free trade agreements. And they're getting worse. And it's interesting, Daniel, because for the first time since I've been doing this work, we got men like you and I, rather than talking about NFL free trade agents, we are now talking about free trade agreements. And Trump has really changed the consciousness of this country.
Isn't it amazing? All these jobs, all these factories that continue to either exit the country or be bought up by foreign interests. Nobody, that would not even be a campaign issue. And I know Donald Trump sort of generically was bringing it up, but then it seemed like he really drilled it home right here in Indianapolis when Carrier, and because it was caught live, it was right in the heat of the political cycle. And I'm sure you saw the video that, you know, the CEO of that building there, I don't know, it's not of the company, but of that building, you know, said, hey, we're going to fire all of you and we're moving your jobs to Mexico and be quiet. Basically told them to be quiet about it. So, I mean, but that was a quintessential. Of course, he did bring up before that. He brought up Oreo cookies moving from Chicago to Mexico, and then of course, Century Safe is moving their safe building company now. I mean, it's just one company. It's a race, and it all has to do with these free trade agreements that our government keeps making. And Donald Trump is right in that we don't win on any of those trade agreements. Who in Congress sees it coming back the other way? Let's just ask you, how do you see them selling us to the benefits of these overseas deals?
Well, you know what? I remember, I'll go back, and the answer does not lie in today's rhetoric, because there is no rhetoric, because the war of words and the narrative has already been won. I remember when George W. Bush, very early in his presidential tenure, was speaking in India, and he was talking about free trade agreements, and he says, "I won't have America be a party to protectionism." Well, wait a minute. You're the president. You're supposed to protect your businesses. You're supposed to protect the welfare of your citizens. But protectionism became the moniker for free trade. Free trade is really about free traders to your country. And that's what Congress is. And I'll tell you, Daniel, there's a baseline issue here, and we're not going to be able to resolve it anytime soon. And it's this. You can't have a republic form of democracy when you have a legislative body, the people that make your laws, and the person who executes those laws, called the president, is allowed to take legalized bribes. Because whoever's bribing him, that's your country. And who's bribing these two branches of government? Well, very simply, it's the corporations, and by definition, that makes America a fascist nation. And that's exactly what we are. The corporations have never been wealthier, and the middle class has never done worse. The wealth disparity in this country is horrific, and this is the stuff that revolutions are made of.
Mm-hmm. Well, perhaps it needs to come to that, some sort of revolution. I don't understand how the people that cheer almost in a religious fervor for Hillary Clinton. I'm thinking, okay, I'm glad you like her, glad you're enthusiastic, but what are you expecting her to do? What is it that Hillary Clinton is promising people other than 4 more years of Obama ruling and presidential executive orders? And I don't know. I mean, you can only go so far with transgendered restrooms, and I'm sure Hillary Clinton's big on that. But when you get done with that, what do you got? Does somebody have a job because of that? Is the economy going to boom? That's these sort of these non sequiturs that they're dealing with have nothing to do with job creation or stopping companies from leaving. They're just these little hollow sayings. How is it that people don't see that? Are they hypnotized?
Yes. Let's put it this way. Trump has awakened a significant number, millions of Americans to be exact, and there's a shift in consciousness currently going on. This is forcing the globalists to act very quickly to implement their agenda. And what's their agenda? And this is really the overarching theme for everything that's happening to us. You cannot have one world government when you have one segment of the world's population, 5% of them, America, who has constitutional liberties that makes them more powerful than the government. It's supposed to be the other way around in this new world order. And then also the secondary goal they have is a one world economy, where you can't have a prosperous America, particularly those people who think of themselves as free, and you have to bring down both. And the trend curve for the globalists, whose money bags from people like George Soros has already donated $13 million to Hillary Clinton, they want to bring this country down. So they tell these politicians, this is your agenda. They don't tell them, hey, you're going to kill your own country. What they do is put them on a trend curve, an orbit, so to speak, that will end up in the destruction of this country. We're almost there. In fact, if people want an analogy, and this is the best analogy I can offer, if we continue to go with unbridled immigration, unbridled refugee resettlement, which at least 10% of these people are terrorists, and then you've got the free trade agreements we've been discussing, we will look as a country a lot like Detroit. Detroit in the 1960s was the most prosperous city in North America. It was filled with culture and arts and great sports, and the people were well educated. Had 2 million people. Today, that city's down to 700,000. They are razing entire neighborhoods, just tearing them to the ground. The police and the fire are in utter chaos. The schools are a joke. Detroit is already declared bankruptcy. They are a collapsed American city. That's what America's future looks like. St. Louis, Cleveland, Chicago, Baltimore, go on down the list. Those are the cities that are entering the Detroit zone right now. And that's because we're following this New World Order agenda, and our politicians are falling in lockstep.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of bribes, there is the Saudis are trying to blackmail the U.S. Congress into getting rid of $750 billion worth of assets if they pass that law that allows families to sue them. And I noticed, Dave, I don't know if you noticed, was this already planned, or did it look like Obama, as soon as that came to the news cycle, Obama jumped on a plane and flew over to Saudi to apologize?
Yeah, well, didn't he bow down and kiss the hand of one of the sheiks or prince or whatever they want to call themselves?
So he was basically guaranteed.
The man is a Muslim, and he knows his place in the pecking order. That's the short answer to the question.
Yeah, and I would think, from what I see, the way he behaves, he is subservient to them. They have a haughtiness over. Do you have that same perception that they are in control of him? They are higher than him.
Well, I would agree. Saudis are higher on the pecking order than Kenyans.
Mm-hmm. Whoa. Okay. All right. Hey, we got a question coming in, and let's just get to this. I keep getting questions about Prince, and it has nothing to do with the show. But doesn't there seem to be? I tell you what, I'll make a connection with Prince. How is it that Prince immediately got a autopsy, but Anthony Scalia, when he died as Supreme Court justice, they did not give him a autopsy? What do you make of that?
Well, one man died of natural causes, and the other man was murdered.
Okay.
Pretty simple. There's no mystery in there.
No mystery.
In fact, this killing of Scalia is not even a hidden crime. It was a message killing. You find a pillowcase on or near the face. Mm-hmm. That's sloppy crime scene cover-up. They can all do better than that. Mm-hmm. That was a message to the people around Scalia, to the people at Scalia's level. We can get to anybody at any time.
Mm-hmm. Even Supreme Court justices.
That's exactly right.
By the way, I heard I think it was Rick Wiles had a guy on that had a vision about Donald Trump being the president of the United States. Did you hear that?
Yes, but I only know about as much as what you just said.
Okay. Well, it was fairly interesting what the man had to say, and I think he had his documentation that he wrote down what his vision that he got. I guess maybe in 2011 about that. But interestingly enough, here's a little something. Donald Trump was just here in Indianapolis, and part of that man's dream was that he said in the attacks against Trump, the attacks would roll off his back like water off a duck. And interestingly enough, when Donald Trump spoke at the Indianapolis Fairgrounds, there was a duck in the rafters right above him. Just saying. I'm just saying. So maybe.
Oh, what synchronicity we have.
We got to go with it, man.
I'll go you one better on this. I look at what Trump said regarding abortion. It is relatively insensitive. I don't need to elaborate, but being a former mental health therapist, I can tell you women that go through that don't do it lightly for the most part. Do I agree with the decision? No, not in most instances. It saved the mother's life, yes. But these women don't need judgment. They need to be reclaimed for the glory of God, which means they need to be shown love and empathy. And it was a very, very, very poor choice of words by Donald Trump, even though I think he was worn down in the interview. Now, having said that, the man has more lives than a cat because, almost 60% of women in New York who are Republican voted for him. We're seeing similar numbers now in the polls in California. And so the people are going to be forgiving of Trump and his faux pas because he's talking about the things that are taking money out of their pockets and costing the future of their children, namely the free trade agreements, illegal immigration, and the national security threat of refugees. As long as he stays on those 3 points, he's going to be able to make some mistakes and still keep his voting block.
What do you think about the Russian plane strafing American naval vessels?
Well, first of all, I think it should have been shot down. That was a threatening action. You walk up to me on the street and you load up and you're going to throw a right cross at me, I'm going to get you with the jab first, and then I'll probably sidekick you to the knee, so to speak, from a former martial artist. That's what we should have done. Right. You never, ever approach a police officer that way, It's like St. Louis. You go for the gun of an officer, you expect to get shot. When you strafe this and pretend to strafe a ship, you're going to get shot down, or you should. But these are the Obama stand-down orders. These are the same orders we see in Afghanistan that cost American lives. You have to let them fire on you before you can fire on them. Then why do we have all this expensive electronic gadgetry that allows us to locate the enemy, but we can't do anything about it? Same on our ships. It's Obama is a traitor, and that's who sets these policies.
Right. And, of course, there was a stand-down order given in Baltimore as well. It said let them burn down the city. Or was that Ferguson? Can't remember. It's all the same. All right, here's a question for you. It says, is there going to be a false flag disaster at the convention?
Yeah, well, obviously someone's read my article from this week, and I made the case that you can make a case. I certainly don't have a crystal ball, but I will say this. Trump, I don't think will have 1237 going into the convention. I don't think it's politically possible for them to assassinate him at this point. Because I think that the reaction would just be so horrific, they're not prepared to deal with the backlash. And I'll tell you this, if they killed Donald Trump, if the other side killed Donald Trump that don't want him in, and they want to continue the gravy train for the corporations, all the people on the fence about Trump, whether they be Democrats or Libertarians or Republicans, would jump right in the middle of the Trump movement, and we would see an out-of-control nation. So I don't think he's going to be assassinated, but I do tell you, here's a couple of scenarios I see. Number one, I was offered by, and I'm not going to identify the source, but by a news agency to go and cover the convention. And as I looked into it, I found that George Soros's boys are there. MoveOn.org and Black Lives Matter have booked multitude of hotel rooms. Right there, you've got the breeding ground for major false flag activity. Not just direct thuggery behavior like we saw in Chicago, but false flag activities. The other thing that we know from the FBI director from last year, he announced on July 4th that we have ISIS terrorist cells in all 50 states. So let's take him at his word. How hard would it be for them to do a mini 9/11? Let's get 4 small airplanes, load them up with extreme explosive devices or even dirty bombs, and your suicide bombers fly them right into the convention center on the third day, the day of the highest activity of the convention. And that solves a lot of problems for the other side. One of two things would happen in that scenario. Martial law would probably be declared, especially if you had secondary attacks around the country. And you also would see either Obama staying in office, which I am actually starting to think that is a possibility, or Hillary Clinton would have a walk-in to the presidency. And you said something earlier about Obama and Clinton. Let me make a baseball analogy here. Okay. Obama was allowed to become the president first because he's the 8th inning setup guy. He's got the stuff to get you to the 8th inning. But here comes Hillary Clinton, this nasty closer, sociopath, no social conscience, no loyalty to the country, as evil as they come. She's your 9th inning closer. And so one of two things would happen off of a false flag event at the convention if it were successful and killed off most of the Republican leadership. I believe Obama would probably stay in office under martial law, and there would be no election. That would be my number one scenario. And I'll tell you what adds fuel to that fire, Daniel, is last week when the Federal Reserve was holding all its multitude of meetings, they did something that they never do, is they went and had Obama and Biden come to these meetings. And what do Obama and Biden have that the Federal Reserve needs? Nothing except one thing: use of the U.S. military, which is what you need in martial law scenarios. So that's my long-winded answer to that question.
Going back to the guy that was I heard on Rick Wiles giving the vision, he said that what he saw was that in the last hour, Hillary Clinton gets indicted, and then that ensues chaos, and that triggers Obama to parachute in. You know, talk about in the convention how they're trying to, you know, they think that somebody like Ryan Paul or maybe even George Bush coming back parachuting in to get all the delegate votes in the convention, you know, but that was the scenario that they painted, that Obama is looking for a way to get permanent status in that White House to finish off America. And boy, is he really, you know, accomplished his fundamentally transforming America. As I said in my ranting points before the show, you know, I don't understand a Hillary supporter. I mean, you can only celebrate so much transgendered restrooms. I mean, I'm sure they're gonna nationalize that in one way, shape, or form. It's going to be federal law. So any law that's any state's passed is going to be like gay marriage. I can tell you, Dave. I mean, my prophecy is they're going to wipe them out. Say any separation is illegal under the Constitution. Wipe out every state law. But that doesn't create any jobs. That doesn't create an excitement for the country. It's like Obama. You can get gay marriage in there. You can kiss the Saudi's hand, and kiss his ring. You can bend over, do an apology tour, but we're not getting any jobs out of that. We're not getting any new businesses. We don't have any vision for the future. You can only go so far with that kind of crap, and that's why I can't imagine. Why is it? What are people seeing that Hillary's going to do for them?
Nothing.
I mean, at least Bernie's going to give you a free education.
More the same. More the same. In fact, actually, we're going to see worse. This is a woman who joked about FEMA camps, said everyone needs to go to a FEMA camp, but she substituted the word fun camp. She's telling you what she's going to do. Look, we just need to look at her history. Let me just run through. People have been hibernating. Okay, she's responsible for the death of Chris Stevens. In fact, Aaron Klein, broadcaster, book writer, immense talent, FOIA'd some of those emails before they went dark under national security. And I've got copies, and I've published them that I got from Aaron. And some of those emails, Hillary Clinton was transmitting the whereabouts and travel plans for Ambassador Stevens. Number one, I have a contact inside the State Department, and this individual told me that's a federal crime. That's a felony unto itself. You can't do that with a senior official, and an ambassador is a senior official. The second thing is you could argue she's an accomplice to murder after the fact. She let people know where they could find them. You could assume that from these emails. Okay, and then we go to Uranium One. All the BLM controversy, with the Bundys and so forth. What's going on there? Well, what's going on there is the BLM is going on and extracting things like uranium, and they're sending them to this corporation called Uranium One, which is a front company. It's a combination of Canadians, the Clinton Foundation, and Russians. And what does Hillary Clinton get out of this? Uranium is going directly to Putin, and they are paying back, sometimes directly, sometimes secondarily, for speeches given by Bill Clinton, big sums of money into the Clinton Foundation she uses to run for president. Mm-hmm. Put it another way, and by the way, Dave Hodges did not break this story. So people can't attack me. This was the New York Times in April of 2015, and I followed the story for 2 months and found some ancillary information to confirm this, and then I ran with it. And what's ended up happening here is you have a modern-day Ethel Rosenberg and Hillary Clinton. Ethel Rosenberg was convicted and executed, along with her husband Julius, for obtaining and selling nuclear secrets to the Russians in the 1950s. Hillary's doing worse than this. She's selling nuclear material to the Russians. This is who is running for president. And then you've got the fact that each count of these emails that she ran on her private server, that's national security emails, only supposed to be run out of secure State Department computers. That's a 5-year sentence for each one of those. And what are we up to? 36,000 that we know about? I mean, she could be,
do you think,
until the second coming, she could be in prison. Daniel, this woman is a sociopathic criminal that she's never going to get indicted. That prediction is wrong as long as Obama and his lackey, Hillary, was it Loretta Lynch Mob, the Attorney General?
Loretta Stench.
Loretta Lynch Mob can only be the one that indicts Hillary. She's not touching her. She should have been indicted months ago. She's not going anywhere.
Dave, do you think that the FBI is being compromised?
Depends what level you're talking about. The FBI has produced enough evidence to put Hillary away for the rest of her life. So in that sense, no. But I also know that when Obama first ran for office, they're supposed to run a 5-point test. And forgive me, I forget the acronym for it because I don't have it in front of me. And it's been done for every president since World War II to test their suitability to hold office. Those tests were never run. That part of the FBI was compromised.
Well, I can tell you this, because of Obama's previous associations with known terrorists, he would never be employed with the Secret Service or the FBI or any agency.
Well, I'll give you one. Let's just do one, okay? Just one thing that wraps all this up why he's ineligible. Forget the birth certificate and all that.
Okay.
Who is the president's half-brother? His name is Malik, same name Obama. And what are his 2 job descriptions? He runs guns for the Muslim Brotherhood and runs their finances. And Obama has never disavowed the actions of his brother, the terrorist. In fact, Obama has allowed key people into DHS in top-level positions, into the FBI, into the other intelligence agencies who have known terrorist ties to Hezbollah, Hamas, the Muslim Brotherhood. And I'm sure if we start digging deep enough in this modern era, we'd find ISIS. And I've written articles on this. I've named names and shown their associations. So when we look at this, Daniel, the man is an absolute traitor. Hillary Clinton is an absolute traitor. That's who's leading this country into oblivion.
Is it a shock? You mentioned a shocking coincidence earlier. Is it a shocking coincidence that both Obama and Hillary, both their right-hand man is Muslims? Huma and Valerie Jarrett?
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
It's just a shocking coincidence, isn't it?
Yeah, in fact, let's just take Valerie Jarrett's family for a second. Let's go back to the man who launched Obama's career, the radical head of the Weatherman Underground, Bill Ayers, who Obama still meets with today. And guess who else was in the Weatherman Underground in 1969? A guy named Vernon Jarrett, Valerie Jarrett's father-in-law. And by the way, I made a discovery, and you're probably not aware of this because I haven't really gone too public with it yet, but they have scrubbed from the internet Hillary Clinton's college thesis, which is basically memorializes Saul Alinsky and Rules for Radicals and how she says these rules need to be employed. This includes murder, economic self-destruction, and so forth. But here's what's interesting. She wrote this dissertation in 1969. The same exact year that the Weatherman Underground were infiltrated by Larry Grathwohl, FBI special informant, who I interviewed several times for his death. And they all are saying the same thing. Hillary Clinton was in alignment with Bill Ayers and the Weatherman Underground and the communist takedown of this country. In fact, Bill Ayers told Larry Grathwohl, when we win, we're going to have to put 50 million Americans into re-education camps, and we'll have to do away with, meaning murder, over half of them. So here's Hillary Clinton in this college dissertation that's 47 pages of text when you take out all the superfluous stuff, and she is in alignment with Bill Ayers, Bernardine Dohrn, who've both been to prison, and also Saul Alinsky, the communist radical telling how to take down countries, who basically is the philosophical first cousin of George Soros. And I'm publishing this on Monday. I've released it preliminarily just for self-protection. These
people are so deep in it. I know that Chelsea Clinton's husband's dad was thrown in jail for hundreds of millions of dollars worth of fraud. I mean, everything around the Clintons, and I would go so far as to say even the Bushes for that matter, but there's so many crimes floating around there. And, what struck me when I watched the debate between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton was she was giving him a look like, you know what, you could make my list. You could make the Clinton body count list in a second if I wanted to. I could just see that in her eyes, man.
You're right on the money.
Yeah, you don't want to be on her bad side, but anyway, of course she got a thing for Huma anyway. Her, because she left Bill a long time ago physically, but I think her and Huma got things going on. All right, so here's a question from Tom Jones in the UK for you, Dave. He says, who would you like to see as president?
Well, I've said this oftentimes because there's a nagging little part of me that says, is Donald Trump really who he says he is in terms of his modern persona? So I like to answer the question this way. I'm voting for what Trump stands for. I'm not necessarily voting for Trump the man.
Well, that's interesting, too. About that, if something does happen to Donald Trump, and I'm sure somebody's out there got a prophecy says that he's going to be killed, and somebody there's a prophecy somebody is going to be president. So you got all these competing prophecies, so to speak. But if something does happen to him and he gets out of the picture, has he already released the genie out of the box? Do you think this movement is strong enough to continue without his leadership?
Yes. But what form it'll take, let's put it this way. The movement won't stop with his death. What form it takes after that is interesting to me. Let me give you some social psychological research to show you where this is at.
Okay.
The group called SNARC is famous for doing social psychological research on trends and fads.
Okay.
And what they've concluded is when something goes into wildfire mode and it's spreading out of control across the country, you have to have that number reach 10% of committed followers that are making this happen. Well, what Donald Trump has done in 6 months is what people like you and I have tried to do for over 6 years, and we haven't been able to accomplish what he's done. But he's pushed us way beyond the 10%. Mm-hmm. I think they know, too, killing him is pointless. Now, if Trump were to be killed, or even to die accidentally, because people do die accidental deaths, you could have a heart attack. But anyway, the reality is the movement will go forward. But Daniel, for the life of me, I can't tell you what will happen. There'll be an initial wave of violence, because no matter how the man would die, no one would ever believe it was anything but a conspiracy. Mm-hmm. So you will have a long, hot summer. But what would be the political ramifications? Who would pick up the sword and move on? I don't know that there's an heir apparent.
Mm-hmm. Well, I tell you what, I can't see one. I mean, he is such a larger than life character. He's obviously the perfect leader or groundbreaker or point of the spear of this whole. Really, it's a revolution. It's a modern day revolution. It's a social networking revolution. And so I agree with you that the genie is out of the bottle. You know, forever Americans wanted to believe that our government was honest. We wanted to believe that our politicians didn't lie to us. We always make fun of those who say there's conspiracies going on, you know, so they're just nuts. We've always tried to give the benefit of the doubt. And by sheer volume, the contradictions to that thesis has shown that it is exactly the way it has been shown, that it is. There are conspiracies that are so vast and so unbelievable. You know, I think the Germans had a way of doing things. They said, if we do something so outlandish, people will never believe that it could possibly be true, but we can get away with them for that very reason. And our government is sort of like that. You know, how it is that a foreign country tries to blackmail a Congress and our president goes and apologizes to make sure it doesn't happen. I mean, it's like this is a whacked out world, but it's so outrageous, but yet that's what it is. On its face, that's what it is.
Yeah, people need to think of our government in the form it's really allowed itself to morph into. It's organized crime. It's for sale to the highest bidder and elimination of all opponents. That's organized crime. We have protection rackets. If you pay enough money, you'll get your issue or cause heard. I'll give you an example, okay? You've got General Electric, right? Big player in the media, big player in industry, and they play along with Obama, so their employees are exempt from Obamacare. McDonald's Corporation, the same thing, the other end of the spectrum from the corporate point of view. I mean, this is total, absolute mafioso behavior.
Mm-hmm. All right, here's a question for you. It says, Dave, this is from Steve Ells out of live chat. When do you think we had a president who was real, the genuine article? What was the last president that could fit that bill?
Well, I would say that Ronald Reagan was during his candidacy. I mean, I almost fell out of my bed when I heard him on the early morning broadcast call out George Bush when they were in the primary, saying that Bush was in the Trilateral Commission. I go, you gotta be kidding me. They let this on TV? Mm-hmm. That was 1980. Reagan got in and he wasn't playing ball and they shot him. They said, this is how it's going to be. And even then they had trouble with him in his first term until they put more, let's put it this way. His Alzheimer's was induced. And I've had a lot of medical people tell me how they did it. Mm-hmm. So I would say Reagan, and I would have to go back before that to John Kennedy had an epiphany. If people listen to his secret society speech and then couple that right on the heels with the American University speech in May of 1963, when he said, we're not going to spend money to kill billions. We're going to spend money to educate and feed billions, to lift humankind up. He had an epiphany. In fact, he actually had in the bedroom reunited with Jackie at that time, and this was 6 short months before his birthday. Those 6 months were probably the most true months of service a president has had towards his country. Oh, gosh, I don't know. I think you can go back to Andrew Jackson when he kicked the central bankers out for which he's being punished for now and, taking him off the 20.
Oh, by the way, somebody asked my opinion of the proposal for, I think this is part of the fundamental transformation of America. That is to change our money. And I guess what they're saying, they want to put Harriet Tubman on the 20. Well, for one thing, joke's on Barack, because Harriet Tubman was a gun-toting Republican. So thank you very much, Barack. But I think my opinion is, for those that asked me that question earlier, is the only people that should be on our money would be U.S. presidents. And she certainly doesn't fit that bill. But let me ask you something about secret societies. Newt Gingrich said about Donald Trump is that he is not a member of one of the secret societies, and therefore the system is rebelling against him. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I think that comment's more symbolic than real, than, more figurative than literal. That's my sense. Although, do you remember, and I couldn't tell you where to find it, but do you remember when Newt Gingrich was signing a book and it was on tape and someone challenged him about Bohemian Grove? Do you recall that? And
Vaguely.
He really got angry. I mean, he started calling the guy names and insulting him.
Yeah, like he shape-shifted. I kind of remember that.
Yeah. If look, I don't know the inner workings there. I know how it works. I know when my dad was in naval intelligence, and it was very perfunctory, but before he could go to the next level as a captain, he had to actually become a 32nd degree Mason. And he told me, he said, Dave, it was a bunch of crap. But he said it's what we had to do, and none of us really paid attention to it. And my mom was required to be an Eastern Star. If you were into certain things in naval intelligence, that's what they made you do, and it was part of their indoctrination. So when people say secret societies aren't part of it, they are. But then there are people like my father that went along to go along here. He basically said he thought it was all nonsense. But you also look at the skull and bones connection with Yale and the presidency, Bush, Kerry, and so forth. There's something to it, but it's not my main focus. So I'm not really the expert to ask all these questions about with secret societies.
But by the way, as you know, on Facebook, I identify myself as President Daniel Ott because in fact, Dave, I believe I am the official president. I have been robbed. So therefore, I have to do this television broadcast until I get my rightful place. But I'm actually getting votes in the live chat now. They'd like to see my picture on the 20. And so if they put my picture on the 20, how about putting Caitlyn Jenner on a $3 bill? How's that sound?
There's a joke there, but I can't say it with FCC regulations. Okay.
Oh boy!
Sorry about that, people.
Hey, all right. So here we go. We got some crazy crap going on out there. Let me ask you about this 28 missing pages of the 9/11 report. Why is Obama trying to hide that? What does it say in there?
I think it's all for show. This is the distraction away from the real issues. The real issues are the three issues I've already identified coming out of the Trump campaign. Right now, everything else is designed to take our attention off the ball. America needs to be singular in purpose and mind and keep their eye on the ball. You look at any moron knows 9/11 was staged. We don't need to revisit that at this critical time. Now, once Trump is in, let's reopen it. Let's open up the evidence lockers and examine the evidence that they've hidden away from us like we're little children and can't know the truth. But right now, we need to stay focused on the mission at hand.
All right. Here's another question for you out of the live chat. It says, Dave, when do you think martial law will be enacted in this country? What's the trigger?
Okay, that's a better question. What the trigger is in terms of a date. The date question is impossible to answer. The trigger question is a little more manageable. The trigger question can be answered like this. When there's a political advantage to be gained by subjugating the people and trying to initiate gun confiscation, as well as seizure of all financial assets, control of all food. And that wouldn't necessarily be martial law. We're talking about Executive Order 13603, which is the first cousin to martial law. And it's easier for the president to initiate that because he doesn't need a pretext like he would under martial law. So I would say we're doing this for your good reaction in the face of false flag attacks, similar to the one I possibly described that could happen at the Republican National Convention in July. But it'll come off some kind of false flag event. You can bet that.
But still, as far as the leadership role for the I don't know, we'd want to call it the Trump movement or the pro-American or the nationalist movement. How would you describe it, the movement, if you had to put a name on it? The Awaken movement?
I would call it a populist movement.
Populist? Okay. So,
because this is attracting people who are apolitical. And see, Daniel, this presents a really unique challenge for you and I. My numbers are up. I'm sure your numbers are up. They're up across the board. John Rappaport told me the other day his numbers are up tremendously. And these are the millions of people who used to think we were all tin-foiled hat conspiracy theorists. that are now saying, these guys might know what they're talking about because they're sounding a lot like Donald Trump and he has my attention. And I will tell you that with every big social movement, there's also an echo movement that goes with it. So we're going to see another big boom either before the convention or after the convention, before the general election. Mm-hmm. So get ready, Daniel, because a lot of people are coming to us. Now, they're coming to us not with a broad understanding of the New World Order. That's our job, to slowly educate them and be patient with them. But what we also need to look at here is these people are coming really mad about two issues, and most of them are economic. Mm-hmm. And in fact, they're going to need social media. In fact, let me take a side turn here. Mm-hmm. I agreed to become a national spokesperson for something called Scene.life, SEEN.life. It's the answer to Facebook. If you go on Facebook, you can find an Assassinate Donald Trump page, but the minute you write about Hillary Clinton and Uranium One and selling that to the Russians, you're going to be banned. So this is a Facebook imitation. It's just like Facebook when you're on it. Sometimes it's hard not to know the difference. And this will give these new people, not the experienced people who know 100 issues connected to the New World Order, but people that are just coming to us as one or two issues. It'll give them a social platform to grow and change. And they don't make you give your information. All you need is a name and an email. They don't sell your data. I would never be a party to something, and if they ever did that, I would quit. Yep. So that's Scene.life, and I'm really proud to be part of it because this is where the new people coming into the movement can really grow at a faster rate than they would with people like you and I. When we got into it, we had to learn on our own. Mm-hmm. So we're seeing just an explosion here. Listen, the globalists aren't going to get away with taking over this country without a big fight. And I wouldn't have said that 5 years ago.
The United States, at least the honest, decent, God-fearing Americans, have always been taken for granted. Just because we have lightweights running things doesn't mean there's not a major force just right out of sight. So it's called Scene.life. Yeah,
SEEN.life. And like I said, I've been fortunate enough to be appointed the national spokesperson. I'm really proud to be doing that because I think we're going to help a lot of Americans who are just finding out about how evil these people are, like Hillary Clinton, and what we need to do. And I'm already seeing evidence of it. I mean, we're into about a third week of launch, and I'm watching the site grow, and I'm looking at the experienced people who you can tell they really get it. They've been doing this a long time. And you can tell the new people, but they're hungry for knowledge. And these are people we need in any revolutionary movement, whether it's at the ballot box or on the battlefield. You need to have the sound of marching feet. And these kind of movements, these social media movements, are really important because 65% of the people under the age of 40 are getting their news from digitized social media sources. So this is the wave of the future. It's not about getting on CNN. In fact, Daniel, one of the things I did for quite a while last year, we were on my radio show was on WMLX, and it was on other stations where I was getting a lot of listeners. But we had to raise so much advertising revenue, I thought it was counterproductive. And I thought, Dave, just stay digital. Your overhead costs are almost nothing. Your numbers are about as good, and you're not having to throw an arm and a leg in there. You're not constantly asking for people to send money to you. It's happening naturally through quality advertisers that sell what your people need, that listen to your show. And that's the wave of the future. It's not being on AM and FM radio. It's digitized social media sources. And this is how we're going to reach most of the people because this is the medium that the young people are comfortable with.
Whatever happened to Jade Helm? What was the end result of that?
It's still there, my friend. And in fact, it's morphed into Jade Helm 16, which officially they're calling UX 16, UWEX, Unconventional Warfare Exercises. They're ongoing as we speak right now, and I've published the federal, SCRIB-Ed documents, crisis actors and so forth and so on. And what they're practicing for down there is an extension of Jade Helm 15, which was dissident extraction, but they've gone a lot further. They're now practicing civil war drills against rogue American military units. So in other words, the Obama administration is anticipating that some of the military is going to join with the people. And in fact, I'll give you a little inside knowledge here. There's a movie coming out called Amerigeddon. Have you heard of that?
No. American?
Okay, well, it's going to hit the box offices on May 15th. I have been chosen to review the movie, and I have watched it preliminarily the first time through. I'm going to probably watch it 3 times before I write. And this movie is predicated on UX. It's a UN movement where they hit us with an EMP, and the UN tries to take over the American military and subjugate the entire country. And I'm not going to give any more away than that at this point. But what ends up happening in here is what we would expect to see in any movie like that, where a number of American soldiers aren't going along with the order of the day. And this is what UX is about, UX 16 in Texas. But they also say in the literature that it won't just be in Texas, and they say unspecified locations. And I'm getting reports around the country where the evidence is showing that these drills are also going on there too.
All right, Mary again. All right, Dave, we're at the top of the hour. We take about a 5-minute break here before we turn you down in our break. What you got to say about your website? How can people get there? What can they find there?
They can get there at thecommonsenseshow.com. Very easy to find. And my radio show that runs at 8 o'clock p.m. on Sunday nights can be heard at the same location, just as Listen to Dave, Upper right-hand corner.
Okay. All right, just stay on the line, Dave. We'll bring you back here in about 5 minutes. All right, everybody, you're watching and or listening to the Edge television broadcast. I'm your host, Daniel Lott. On our Newsmaker line is, of course, Dave Hodges of the Common Sense Show. Right in his bio section there on the Edge's website, you can see a link to his website there. Be sure to drop by there and take a look around. And also, just a reminder, the show will begin to replay in its entirety directly after the show. We'll upload the high-def extract to our YouTube channel. We'll put the audio in our TuneIn radio playlist, which you can listen to 24 hours a day. All of our programs, they're in a queue type situation. And we also podcast it. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Here we go.
Say, come on, Barry. We'll go riding for a while.
And welcome back to the Edge television broadcast. On our Newsmaker line tonight is Dave Hodges. If you got a question for Dave, go to the edgeam.com website, click on the Fast Blast link on the left side of the website, or you can join him in the live chat now where Jade will send your question through another secret Skype channel. We haven't had a guest on the program you'd like to see. Let us know. Drop me a line at edgeam@yahoo.com. Next week, James Perloff's going to be with us talking about global destruction. 2 weeks, Shannon Ray Davis is going to be with us talking about mass exorcism. And May 14th, Dr. Kendall Randall, the preeminent UFO cover-up specialist, we'll have him on the broadcast as well. Now let's go back to our Newsmaker line and welcome back Dave Hodges. Dave, welcome back.
Thank you.
Well, it's good to have you back on the program, Dave. Man, the political events are just rapid fire. They seem to be careening over a cliff of chaos. And I'm sure that the forces that are in control really like chaos because chaos sort of keeps them in control while they have us fighting each other. You know, I saw a statistic that said that race relations now are far worse than they were when the agent of change was elected in 2008. Why did not Obama take that opportunity to heal some racial wounds in this country and bring this country together?
Well, first of all, his citizenship is not the only legitimate thing. So is his race. He is not black. He is a Muslim. And I want to emphasize that. He is primarily a Muslim. Secondly, he comes out of the Saul Alinsky crowd. You know, out of order comes chaos, and right now we're seeing the chaos, and that was his mission. Remember I said, he's the eighth inning setup guy. Hillary is the one that wants to come in and squash the chaos.
So what is Bernie Sanders' role in all this? Is it to make it look like there's actually a contest going on the other side?
No, I think it's to give legitimacy to the Democrats. So, see, at least we care about you. We're going to identify the greedy bankers and the greedy guys that are this and that and the other. That's his sole purpose. He has nothing in the way of solutions. He has nothing to motivate people to get to work on specific issues. But he does identify critical economic issues, and that gives the Democrats the appearance that they care about their people, because I don't think Hillary Clinton's capable of mustering up that appearance. So he's the useful idiot is what I would call him.
What is all this coughing spell going on with Hillary? She got some kind of disease? She got the clap or something? What's going on?
If you want me to answer questions, don't make me laugh like that. You know, who knows? Do I think she could have some health issues? You know, I wondered that during the Benghazi hearings. I know she had the Benghazi flu, and everybody thought she was faking. I wasn't so sure. There could be something going on with her. I don't know. But what we need to know is this, is that if you go to thecommonsenseshow.com and put in Hillary Clinton and you're willing to invest a couple hours and read the things I've written and documented, you will see this woman can never be allowed to be in the Oval Office, ever.
I don't know, man, but she is one angry woman, I tell you that. She got a death stare that could just kill you, just the stench of that thing. But yeah, I mean, but I also think she's got an axe to grind. When she gets in, she's going to make America. I know she has a hatred for America, and for even calling her on her scandals. So she's going to be probably the most vindictive president there ever was if she gets in there.
Well, you remember Valerie Jarrett in the campaign of 2012, and she said, "To you people who are tearing down Barack, there's going to be hell to pay after the election."
Yeah.
And I think that I'll make a wild prediction here. If Hillary does obtain the White House, she's going to obtain people like Valerie Jarrett, and for this purpose. There will be a purge. Folks, you need to listen to me. Hillary Clinton will be the FEMA camp president.
Whoa.
Listen, I've written about this. I've taken past things she has said. I've extrapolated them into the present meaning. This woman will be a one-woman reign of terror, and you won't be able to distinguish Nazi Germany from the United States.
Wow. And it is obvious she will have no sympathy. There's nothing in her that you can detect that has real empathy for anything. Say she's a friend to African Americans or the friend of the poor people. It's so disingenuous. It's like, are you really saying that? She hasn't driven a car since 1989, and she certainly doesn't know how to go through a New York subway turnstile. She gets stuck because she doesn't know how the thing works. I mean, she's lived such a pampered life. She cannot relate to the public.
Well, I'm a former mental health therapist, and she clearly meets all the clinical diagnostic criteria for someone that we say has antisocial personality disorder. Now, in layman's terms, what that means, an antisocial personality disordered person is a sociopathic, psychopathic criminal. It's the combination of both disorders from the 60s.
Mm-hmm. Well, she's got some sort of disorder. And also, besides her coughing spell, she obviously has some sort of sickness there. She's always wearing these gigantic collars. And I don't know, is she trying to hide something? I don't know, it's some kind of fashion statement or what, but you got to know. And the other thing is, when she went out there to debate Bernie Sanders, she had like a laboratory overcoat, like she was a doctor of some kind. I don't get it. And I know she's, that's how she recreate, her staff creates her for each event. So I'm not sure what the message was. I would see that more as a white coat that should have straps and ties on it. So, you would typically find on an insane person, an insane asylum,
Yeah, I don't disagree with what you're saying. Her appearance has been on the, shall we say, bizarre side. Mm-hmm. What it means, it's not something I've really concerned myself with. So I don't know. Mm-hmm. Is it some kind of Illuminati symbolism, as some people have suggested? I have no idea. What I do know is this, is that I have looked at her behavior since the guarantee mortgage fraud and Whitewater and all the way through the governor's office in Arkansas to the first lady to now. There's a trail of bodies a mile long, sociopathic behavior. As I said, antisocial personality disorder. This woman cannot be allowed to be the president. She is Mengele, Hitler, Mussolini. She's all of them rolled up into one.
Let me ask you something. This question came in the live chat. It says, have you seen the documentary Why We Fight?
No, I haven't, but I'm familiar with the content.
Okay. Do you have? I suppose you wouldn't have any opinion on that then. But let me ask you another question then. I brought this up last week on the program. Have you seen the internet pictures of what appears to be Ted Cruz's dad with Lee Harvey Oswald? I think the National Enquirer also just had a big article about it.
Yes.
Is that him?
No, I can't tell. I'm going to just be straight out honest. Mm-hmm. Do I believe it? I think there's a good likelihood. And let me tell you why. If you go back to Clint Murchison and the meeting that took place the night before Kennedy was killed, you had people in Dallas. Let's look at who was in Dallas. We know now through Russ Baker's fine work that George H.W. Bush was there. He became president. We know Gerald Ford was involved. He became a president. Richard Nixon was involved. He was in Dallas when Kennedy was killed. In fact, tried to lie about it and got caught.
Yeah, he didn't know where he was, he said.
Lyndon Johnson. So what we have here are you have no less than 5 people who will become president who were part of the plot to kill Kennedy. And so do I think there's ancillary connections at lower levels? I think unquestionably that has to be true. So by circumstantial evidence, I would say the preponderance of the evidence would suggest that Cruz's dad was involved, yeah.
Mm-hmm. There have been isolated incidents of the internet going down, airport computers going down. Are these prerequisites or staged events to test out what would happen when they pull the big trigger?
Yes, it's a beta test. Mm-hmm. I don't think they have the guts to do it. Mm-hmm. And I know people will laugh when I say that, but I said this long before Donald Trump came along. If you want to put Americans in the street, you want to fight on your hands, you want Yamamoto's projection of American behind every blade of grass with a gun, try to take the guns, try to take the internet. Mm-hmm. Those are the 2 things you can't touch in an overt takedown without expecting Americans to respond violently.
Mm-hmm. So, well, what you're saying then is that there is a sizable amount of Americans that have not been brainwashed. Is that what you're saying? I mean, what would you estimate the free thinkers to be, the percent of the population?
Well, I mentioned that 10% factor that, when a movement sweeps a country, we're way beyond that. I would have estimated, in fact, I actually wrote an article on this a few years ago. I thought we were between 5 and 8% 3 or 4 years ago, 2012 election time. And I made the comment, Benghazi should have put people in the streets, but it didn't because we're not that 10% number. Mm-hmm. We're there today. What's going on today, we're a country ready to go into extreme civil disobedience. I didn't say revolution yet. Mm-hmm. It's right. Civil disobedience, and we're just looking for a marker, an event to make it happen. Mm-hmm. What'll make this a revolution will be the pushback we get from the government, from the Obama administration. That could put us into revolutionary mode right away. If they use rubber bullets versus real bullets, that kind of analogy is what I'm getting at.
Didn't they say that only 25% of the early Americans wanted to succeed the United States from England? It was about 25%?
I was always taught it was a third. Mm-hmm. A third were somewhat committed, a third really didn't care, and a third remained loyalists and Tories and loyal to the king. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so you're in the same ballpark as me on that. And of course, in a revolutionary movement, you don't need 100%. You don't need 50%. You need 10% who are committed to have that spread like wildfire. And we are there. And let me show you how committed the other side is not to compromise with the American people. The politicians that benefit from the Republican Party and the Democratic Party take these campaign bribes every single election, and now their parties are facing destruction, particularly the Republicans, where people like Curly Hoagland and other RNC officials come out and say, hey, you guys aren't choosing. You can vote all you want. That's just for show. We're going to choose who the people are. Mm-hmm. And then you got Bernie Sanders, who won 9 out of 10 primary elections at one point, and Hillary walked away with more delegates. Yeah. The whole thing is corrupt. Mm-hmm. They're going to pick who they want to pick. Well, this is on display for everyone to see. And to show you how far, this is another reason why I think there'll be a false flag. Because of the fact that the Republican leadership is willing to allow their own party to be destroyed, how far are they willing to go? Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, if they don't think they can stop Trump and assassination is not on the table, that's why I believe there could be a false flag attack in Cleveland.
Wow. That definitely is a marker and a place that could be. I mean, they could also blame it on protesters. So, they do seem to be gearing up. And it's so odd that the Republican Party itself is so against the front runner. I've never seen that in my lifetime. Have you?
No, but he's going to take money out of everyone's pocket that's financially raping the country. Mm-hmm. And those people, they're not going to give up 30, 50, 100 years of hard work of fleecing the American people and say, yeah, you're right. We've been discovered now, so we're going to stop doing it. Mm-hmm. They're going to do whatever it takes to maintain the gravy train.
There is, it was just released that Google representatives have visited the Obama White House like 400 times. What do you think you're up to with Google?
Well, if you're looking at an extreme repressive society, the Germans did a pretty good job with this in World War II with the technology available, but Google will perform the technological deeds that need to be done to subjugate the people in a mass surveillance police state. Yeah. That's what I think this is about.
There was some controversy last week when people had suspected there may have been evidence that Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook there was trying to manipulate public sentiment against Trump. They denied that. I think it just simply got caught and they tried to hide the evidence. But I know that Mark Zuckerberg hates Donald Trump. But is it possible that and this is back to Facebook, I suppose, too, that what we see, that there is programming now, Facebook and Google must understand the human psyche. Now, Google said that within 25 years, they'll be able to put your being into a digital format because they know more about you than you do, so they could reproduce us by the simple amount of data that they collect through their algorithms. So isn't it possible that they're already trying to change society and we don't even know it? And if so, how do we know we haven't been changed in our opinions right now?
Well, I've written about this, and I've written it's called mind control. And mind control has been with us easily since the 1960s with the advent of Jose Delgado's experiments, in which he showed you could electrify certain parts of a bull's brain, conduct your own bullfight, and make the bull walk away just because you emit a certain electrical signature. That's on tape. That's on YouTube. I mean, that's publicly available. But we've got a lot farther than that. You've got Project HARP. You've got the chemtrails as conductance. You've got all these cell phone and microwave towers and so forth. And human beings are reactive to electrical frequency modulation. And the experiments are out there. It affects humans. It affects animals. And you can do it localized to an individual, and you can do it generally to a population. So broad beam, narrow beam. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's already being done. But your statements here just opened up Pandora's box, because basically you're talking about simple mind control all the way to transhumanism, which is the complete morphing of a human being in the way that you asked that question. And I'm glad you brought that up, Daniel, because the ultimate goal of the globalists, since they can't get the soul, they serve Satan. So let's be real clear here. They serve Satan. They can't extract the soul. So what they want to do is destroy and morph the human being. And that's what transhumanism is. Transhumanism is turning us away from God's creation to some kind of morbid satanic creation.
Ooh, yuck. Interestingly, Prince was saying something about chemtrails, and he at some point was saying something about there are members. Basically, he was saying things about the Illuminati, which apparently he was saying he's not part of. As goofy as that whole situation of his death is, and as tabloid as it is there anything that you know of that is related to any sort of conspiracy to that?
I don't know, but the fact that the two events are connected in time and space sure makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, our guest a couple of weeks ago said that there is no such thing as a coincidence, and I'm getting more and more into that camp. And it seems like those things that do happen are just really just control mechanisms of some sort. And I'm always thinking, okay, well, this is what's in the news. This is what's happening. So what are they trying to get me to think? And then of course, if you react the opposite way, then you probably will be, have the right reaction. But you got to understand that whatever you read or whatever's presented to us in whatever fashion there's a design behind it. That's what I think.
Well, there is a design behind it. I mean, I do think some coincidences can happen. I mean, there is a randomness to life to some degree. But, how many coincidences do you accept before you have a conspiracy? I mean, it's really interesting, Daniel, how the globalists have taken control of the narrative. But they're losing their grip on this one. Oh, that's conspiracy theory talk. That doesn't carry the weight it once did. And you know what's the funny thing behind that comment is this. That presumes that two bad people would never get together to plan to do something wrong. I mean, that's what, when you label someone a conspiracy theorist, you're not attacking the belief they're put forward. You're attacking them because they're conspiracy theorists by nature. Well, conspiracy theories are the way that we get things done in life. There's good conspiracies, there's bad conspiracies. Hey, let's go to lunch. That's a good conspiracy. Hey, let's rob a bank together. That's a bad conspiracy. And they've had control of the narrative for so long that they've been able to escape scrutiny by attacking the person using vocabulary words. So, but they're losing that grip. That's the beautiful thing here about Trump, is these comments are just bouncing off of people now. It's like they don't carry the weight they once did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think also Trump has opened up our speech a little bit, because obviously he is definitely not politically correct. Now, you mentioned in the first hour, Dave, about his statements on abortion, but I mean, at this point, as far as I know, he still does not have prepared speeches. And he's not using a teleprompter, and I don't know any politician that is doing that. I know if I just got up in front of somebody and started speaking, it wouldn't take long before something crazy came out of my mouth.
Yeah, I think we're all prone to that. There's no question.
It really doesn't take long to do this show for something crazy to come out of my mouth.
With the pure New World Order satanic serving dribble that comes out of Hillary Clinton's mouth, mm-hmm. and to a large extent to Ted Cruz and Rubio when he was in the race, I wouldn't need a teleprompter either. Mm-hmm. I could rely just on what I learned, and I feel I'd be able to hold my ground. And I think there's a lot of people that could hold their ground. Mm-hmm. But I do agree with you. Being the only politician out there not doing this, what Trump is showing you, and this is why I've been swayed. I thought he was the Ross Perot charlatan of 1992 when he was first running. Now what I'm seeing is a man who is so caught up in his own conviction, he doesn't need artificial sources to stimulate his memory. He's speaking from the heart. And this is what I think the American people see. Psychologists tell us that when you deliver a message to a person, 93% of the message comes from body language. Mm-hmm. Only 7% is absorbed from the spoken word. And I think people are looking at Trump's body language and said, this is not the only guy out there, or he is the only guy out there who's not full of bullcrap. Mm-hmm. And I think this is why he can make misstatements about women and abortions, and people are going to forgive him because they can see, honestly, he is who he says he is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other thing is, when Trump came here to Indianapolis, the local news media just went crazy and said he didn't say anything when he was there. I heard the entire speech, and, they said, well, he didn't have any policies announcements or anything like that. But that's putting it into the political sense, is that what we're used to is you have to give your exact stance on this. You have to name the dictators in the Middle East. You have to know who Putin's right hand man is, and how many planes each. You have to know these things. But then I thought, wait a minute, you had Reagan, who said, who agreed to legalize 18 million Americans based on us building a wall. The wall was never built. You had George Bush Sr. saying no new taxes, and he raised taxes. You had Obama saying I'm against gay marriage, and then he evolved, and when he got president, he became pro-gay marriage. I mean, so it doesn't matter what the policy positions are of a politician. It's all BS.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So there's no need to even give them. There's really no need to give a policy thing, because even Hillary's, she came out, she was for against gay marriage, and there's video to show it, and she was for NAFTA, and then she tries to deny it. So it's like, you can give me all the policy positions you want, but it's just manipulation and pandering, and when you get in there, it's going to be a completely different animal.
Well, I have to say, I've heard enough from Trump's policy. Let me quote a couple things here.
Okay.
When you take your business out of the country and you hurt America, we're going to charge you a 35% tax to bring your products back in. That's a definitive policy. He has said it. Trump has said it over and over and over. When he says we're going to build a 20-foot wall, but we're also going to have doors to process people legally, because the United States does need immigration, and Trump has talked about this. We have a 1.8 natural birth rate in this country. We need 2.1 to maintain, but we don't need willy-nilly national security risk kind of crap that we have today. But Trump has addressed this very clearly. And when he talks about the fact that we're going to screen every Muslim coming into the country through this refugee resettlement program, that is a statement of policy. So for anyone in Indianapolis to have said that he never talks about specifics, I just gave you 3 examples where he did.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, when the local news guy gets on the radio, I'll just call on in there and give him the old Watt 4. Hey, here's a question from Grandma out of the live chat. Dave, I don't know if you know, I know you're on a lot of shows and you have your own, but we here at The Edge have an official grandma. Okay, and before the show, she
We
baked.
need grandmas. That's good for you.
Yeah, and she baked everybody virtual cookies just before. So I think we're all eating virtual cookies right now. But her question is, do you think that Ted Cruz is a liar? Is he lying, Ted?
How do you know he's lying? When he opens his mouth.
And where's his birth
How do you know
certificate?
he's
I'm going
cheating?
there.
When he leaves the house.
I want to know where his
That's
birth
my
certificate
answer.
is.
Yeah, from the D.C. madam to, gee, let me think of maybe we shouldn't have free trade agreements, copying Donald Trump. He lies and lies and lies and lies. And he's the Teflon man. He's got a little bit of Bill Clinton in him.
This might be internet lore, but something came across my feed that said one of Hillary's top advisors is a lobbyist for the Saudis at $140,000 per month. Did you see anything like that?
No, I have not. I was told that. I'm trying to think who told me that. I think it might have been my health reporter, Katie Whalen. But I've heard it, but I've not verified it.
All right, and then let's go to a little bit more controversy with the. And I know you may not address issues like this, but North Carolina passed a transgendered bathroom bill, and you got Bruce Springsteen, all kinds of freaks saying they're not going there, but yet they will go to Saudi Arabia where they kill gays. So you talk about hypocrisy. Here in Indiana, they passed a defensive a religious freedom bill, and then Apple came down on the state, and various Angie's List came down on the state, but at the same time, these guys are doing business with foreign entities that kill gays. What we're talking about, somebody doesn't have to bake a cake if they don't want to bake a cake. But it's okay, evidently, with those companies if they're over throwing gays off of roofs and everything. I guess that's okay. That blatant kind of hypocrisy. So where do you see this going with these and then you got Target who just went bonkers with the transgendered thing. Where's all this heading?
I have two answers to that. Number one, cutting off one's penis does not change the DNA of one's being. And when little girls and their moms go into their restrooms, we don't need a pervert in there. I wrote an article that said, is it normal to be perverted? And this is specifically what I talked about. And if I ever had a mom tell me that some guy was in the bathroom leering at her little daughter, I would help that mom I'll say this correctly, remove that pervert from the bathroom. I don't care what the law says. I'm not going to obey this law. I'm not going to respect this law. I've never said any of these people should have their rights denied. They should be denied housing, employment, whatever. I'm not saying that. They need to be treated the same as anybody else. In some cases, we're talking about mental disorder. In fact, let me say this too. Having been raised on DSM-4, the Bible for mental illnesses, and now they're into 5. 5 is politicized, and 4, we called these behaviors gender identity disorder. And they also go with usually a second mental illness. We call it dual diagnosis, comorbidity of diagnosis. And these people are generally, almost in all cases, mentally ill. And I stand by this because the clinical data of the time that I trained and practiced showed that this was true. And because Obama waves a magic political wand and tells the APA to change things doesn't make it so. So it's perversion at its height. Now, I will tell you, here's the answer to your question. Where does Dave Hodges seeing this go? Well, not even the days of Rome did we see this kind of nonsense going on with the bathrooms, but it's going to go one step further because we're going to see the next step is the removal of pedophilia as a crime. And George Soros, let me just say this, 5 years ago, he donated $2 million to NAMBLA, the North American Man-Boy Love Association, whose moniker phrase is sex before 8 or it's too late. If that makes you cringe, America, I am sorry, but this is what these perverts stand for, and that's where this movement is headed. And we know, too, that the globalists maintain child sex rings. They traffic in child sex behavior, are all kinds of, it's one of the biggest businesses on the planet. That's where it's going, Daniel. This is where it's going.
Well, dare I mention Jared Fogle. But let me ask you this. Is this going hand in, doesn't this fit right into the Muslim agenda because of their child brides?
Yes.
Are they behind this? Is that why they're pushing it?
Well, let's put it this way. There's enough noise out there, enough chatter to say that the UN has selected the Muslims to be their agents of enforcement for social perversion. Now, do I think all Muslims are tied into this? No, there's good, decent Muslims in this country. And I'm tired of people with a broad brush saying they're all the same. They're not all the same. But I will say this. The Muslim religion is increasingly becoming a threat to the American way of life. You can say that Sharia law is a threat to the Constitution. And killing gays. Look, I'm a Christian. I don't advocate for homosexual behavior, but I sure as heck don't advocate for throwing them off the roofs. That's wrong. That is more wrong than the behavior they're engaged in. So we've got an entire culture in the Middle East who thinks that that's okay.
All right. Here's a question for you. It says, have the controllers of this planet hijacked the human frequency, turned a positive into a negative, so to speak?
Well, I think on all fronts, yes. I used to be naive enough when I first got into this movement. I thought that if we just won this issue, that issue, and got the right person elected, we can go home and be happy again. No, the entire schema of the human condition, good versus evil, God versus Satan, this is what's at stake here. Ultimately, this is a spiritual battle. It's Jesus versus Lucifer, people. And that's what it is at the common denominator level.
We got this question from old guy out of the live chat. It says, why is the USA buying heavy water from Iran?
That's a good question, isn't it? I don't know. I'm not in on those meetings. And there are some things, Daniel, you can look at, and there's enough dots you can connect and come to the right conclusion. On things like this, all we can do is speculate. Do I think at some level the Obama administration with its covert forces is helping Iran to build a nuclear device, and they're bringing some of their people here to do it? I think so, yes.
All right. By the way, have you signed the, or do you think it's even worth signing the American Family Association boycott of Target?
Haven't done it. Probably will get around to it.
Okay.
Those movements are usually symbolic, but yeah, I got to do my part. I agree.
Yes, you do, Dave.
I do. I admit that.
Okay.
But then again, too, I'm someone who sleeps 4 hours a night, and sometimes I operate on fumes. So please forgive me if I fall behind in some of these issues, because there are too many issues for me to keep up with.
Well, there is, and it's almost like it kind of wears you down. Now, one of the things is that I will say on behalf of those people that may be considering some of these shows doomgasms. When I look out and go in my daily trek, I don't see whole neighborhoods of Muslims, cutting themselves in the street. I don't see, running gun battles and all the sort of chaos that can be out there. And in fact, I may not see anything negative for months. And so though these things are out there, most of us experience our lives. We should make sure that we're enjoying our life and having fun, because you only have so many years to go. At the same time, you don't want to be ignorant of those things that are out there, and do whatever your part, because part of living is giving back, and giving back is sort of keeping control, keeping society intact in some way, so future generations can have some freedom and enjoyment.
Well, I think learning to be happy, and it's a skill. First of all, for me, the joy comes in my creation and who I get to serve and what I try to stand for, and I'm proud of that. I also know I have a lot of work to do, but also I'll give you an example. Today, I spent time with my son golfing. We need to carve out segments of our life that preserve our humanity and add to our enjoyment of living. And if you don't, I think the danger is, especially with what you and I do, is you can become so absorbed that you lose your perspective. You can't forget what you're fighting for. And if you forget to do the things that are fun and required in your life, then you'll forget what you're fighting for.
All right. And it looks like we got another question coming in. It says, Dave, do you believe that Albert Pike and the three world wars align with the actions of our nation's intelligence agency, namely the CIA?
He has been amazingly accurate through the years. I have to give him his due. But he's not of the word. He doesn't walk with the word, which means his prophecy does not endure. It's not John out of the Bible in Revelation. So, no, he doesn't carry a lot of weight with me.
Okay. They're trying to withhold the nominate or the sort of the appointment of the Obama's pick for the Supreme Court. Do you see any other movements in the Supreme Court before Obama gets out of office?
Other than another murder?
Dave. Well, okay.
Well, let me put it this way. I think Congress can stonewall the appointment for one judge. But if there were a second judge to be taken out, or one that was convinced to retire or else, it would be harder for Congress to maintain what they're doing with two positions rather than one. Mm-hmm. Then you could make the argument more clearly that their personal party leadership affiliations are overriding their sense of duty to the country. Mm-hmm. I do think we might see another casualty in the Supreme Court. I think it's very possible. In fact, I'd say it's likely.
All right, and I think you've already answered this question here, but guest 584 says, do you think Hillary will face jail time? I think that we can roundly agree there's no way Loretta Stench is going to let any indictment go forward. So, I mean,
yeah, we're in agreement on that.
Yeah, I mean, and besides that, if somebody did try to move forward, who knows? They're probably going to end up on the Clinton body count list. But you're right about that Scalia thing. That was an announcement that there's nobody too big to. It's funny too because Hillary's saying, well, there's nobody too big to jail, no Wall Street too big to fail, and then she's on both counts. Well, if nobody's too big to jail, why aren't you in jail? But I remember back in the days when she was in the White House where hundreds of files came up on Republicans right outside of her office when they were investigating Bill Clinton. And she said she didn't know how those files got out of the FBI, got right outside of her office, sitting on a desk. She didn't know how those files. That was an announcement. You come against us, we got the record on you. These people are ruthless.
Yeah, how did Vince Foster's glasses stay on his head after he shot himself in the head using his non-dominant hand? So, Hillary, answer that one for me, honey.
Yeah. Or how did Ron Brown in a plane crash have a perfectly round bullet hole in his head? I mean, the coincidences, and you think for people that have a sound mind that if you start saying some of these so-called coincidences, these mysterious deaths, at what point does it cross the line to say, well, these can't be a coincidence? Is it 10? Is it 12? Is it 30 bodies? Is it 70? And the only connection of these 70 mysterious deaths is they're involved with the Clintons? Doesn't at some point even the most cogent brain put it together? There's something else besides coincidences going on here?
You nailed it. Yeah, right there. You said it very well. I can't improve upon what you just said.
Mm-hmm. Here's a question. Do you think passive non-compliance by all people will win the war?
It's only a first step. It's a way of neutralizing the power they have over us. Ultimately, though, listen, people, you need to listen to this. If you don't have food, water, and guns, and probably some precious metals after the economy collapses and you can come out with something to spend, but particularly food and water. If you don't have food and water, you're at Obama's mercy. Mm-hmm. You need to hide some of it because FEMA has practice confiscation drills.
And that's interesting, too. But aren't they also having martial law drills around the country now?
Well, that's part of UX. That's what I had mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. And also in Wyoming, too, they've got a bunch of martial law drills going on. One big one happened last week. Mm-hmm. And I was sent flyers on that from people whose businesses were given these flyers. Mm-hmm. So, look, they're expecting a civil war. Let's be real clear here. Obama expects you to rebel. Obama expects some of the military and law enforcement to join you. They're preparing to kill you. Get food, get water, get guns, and try to have a safe place to go to if trouble comes to your area.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about Obama going, telling England that they better not exit the EU, or they'll have to go, quote, to the back of the bus in U.S. Business dealings? What kind of blackmail is that? And what is Obama's interest in them staying in the EU?
Because the EU, let's look at what the EU is. It's a regionalization of nations. The North American Union, which we officially entered into in 2005, and we're moving in that direction, is the regionalization of nations. And the globalist plan all the time was not to wake up one day and say, world government's here. No, it's to regionalize and then build the regions together and then make your announcement. And the free trade agreements are the overarching part, which takes power away from national governments, removes sovereignty, and gives control to the corporations. In fact, you people who are really young listening to this show, don't know about a movie called Rollerball, not the 2012 version, which was garbage, but the 1975 James Caan version. You need to go look this movie up and watch it. It was the story about how the world came under the control of 6 corporations. That's where we're headed. That's what the free trade agreements ultimately are all about. It's wealth transfer, but it's also political power transfer. If you look at the TPP, Daniel, the TPP is NAFTA, CAFTA on steroids because it removes all oversight from Congress and the federal government. The Supreme Court is neutered. The president is neutered. The corporations have a 22-person panel that will make all legal decisions. That's Rollerball 1975.
Okay, I know there are just. It seems like there are just several corporations that have hundreds of billions of dollars. I always wondered what they do with all that money.
Well, in the case of HSBC Bank, they launder more money by setting up ancillary organizations. John Cruz, former vice president of that bank, has spoken out on that on my show. They also get into criminal enterprise, drug trafficking, kid trafficking. Hell, Wells Fargo Wachovia, what was it, 8 years ago, was busted for child trafficking over in the Middle East, and they paid a $400 million fine. No one went to jail. So part of this stuff gets reinvested into the criminal economy. Some of it's reinvested into its legitimate business interests. So, yeah, I mean, they have more money than God. That's because they have raped us financially. I can't overstate this and say it too many times. We have witnessed in the last 30 years the greatest wealth transfer in the history of the planet.
There's some northeastern states coming up for the primary here soon. What do you think Donald Trump's chances are of winning those?
Well, some of those are pretty liberal. You know, over in Bernie Sanders' home area, you know, over on New Hampshire, Rhode Island, those could go the way of someone besides Trump. But then again, too, I have to tell you, Kasich and Cruz really aren't much better choices for that kind of mindset. It's going to be an interesting debate. Now, I will tell you this. Living in those states are still people who want to make a living, want a future for their kids. So I would imagine Trump is still going to do fairly well.
And by the way, you know, I can't vote for Kasich because he has some sort of posture problem. I don't know, some kind of hunchback thing going on there. But why is he even in the race? What's he up to? Is he trying to get a broker convention and try to parachute in?
Yes, and his posture position is one called the bent over position. He's doing what he's doing because the Republican criminal elite that are running their party want him to do this to siphon delegates away from Donald Trump. He's wasting his life right now. These are days he'll never get back. He'll never benefit from it. If the party's going to be stolen from within by the white knight, as Mitch McConnell has called this new person besides Trump, we're talking Mitt Romney, and we're talking, I don't know, Paul Ryan probably. They both filed paperwork on January 30th of this year to be eligible to run for president. Now, if that wasn't a plan B or plan C for the Republicans, why'd they file the paperwork?
Interesting. And you know, old Rubio's still out there. He's not let go of his delegates.
You know, Rubio, Trump's disdain for Rubio, I feel it in my heart, too. This man can't be trusted. He is a mini version of Hillary Clinton. We ever let him get the reins of power, he could be almost as dangerous. This man says one thing and believes another. He's great at lying to your face, but what he really stands for is fascism, corporate control. Look at the way he runs his state, the way he represents his state, the way he's represented his position. Yeah. He's pro-free trade. Isn't it interesting? All the things that have wrecked this country are commonalities between every one of the other candidates. You've got Bernie, who is a senator. Okay, free trade agreements on your watch, Bernie. Hillary was a senator, Secretary of State, free trade on her watch. You go on the other side, Cruz, Kasich, all free trade on their watch. And sorry, Kasich, being the governor doesn't exempt you because you were in the Reagan administration during free trade agreement planning and implementation. And of course, we know Heidi Cruz was one of the prime movers in NAFTA, the wife of Ted Cruz. So you could argue for the American people Ted might be sleeping around, but when he's home, he's sleeping with the enemy.
And also, she's a member of Goldman Sachs too, as well. When I think of Marco Rubio, I think he's probably the guy that supplied Bill and Monica Lewinsky those Cuban cigars.
Oh, stop it! You're not going to get another good answer out of me if you keep making these kind of jokes.
Something fishy about that whole thing. I'll stop with that one. All right, here. Whoa. Here's a good one. Now you mentioned being ready for the coming collapse, be it financial or otherwise, or chaos, or even civil war for that matter. But this viewer wants to know, Dave, what skills are needed to survive in a time with no money or food? Now, I suppose let's say somebody has food supply and they got water supply, but what skills would they need? Do you think they should practice on some kind of skill, or you think just having supplies is enough?
No, as society goes deeper into a collapsed scenario, your access to medicine, your access to healthcare is going to be your biggest challenge. And some people will be better prepared for that than others. Mm-hmm. I even see, if we had a Mad Max scenario, kidnapping doctors and nurses for the skills that they have. Mm-hmm. If you go to readymaderesources.com, my good friend Bob Griswold, he actually has a section in there about how to cauterize a wound, how to stitch, and so forth. That's something that people really need to pay attention to. And I'll tell you something that Dave Hodges and his family is lacking in. Natural health care will be the order of the day. That's why I'm becoming a proponent not of mainstream medicine any longer, but of things like essential oils. And I don't have a business relationship with them, so I can say this. But I've used essential oils this year when I've been sick, and I've had really good results. People need to look at the natural healthcare remedies, because that may be all that they have available to them. And, of course, if you have a chronic condition such as diabetes or asthma or something like this, you probably should be stockpiling your medicines as best you can.
Mm-hmm. There will be, in a breakdown, there will be millions of zombie-like college-age kids walking around with their iPhones not working. They won't know what to do. They'll be staring at it, hoping that phone will tell them what to do. What do you see those people at? Should you try to help them, or what would you do with those when they start walking down your street?
Well, you're going to have a 20-year-old male who's in considerably better condition I am, that's going to be extremely hungry and very desperate. I don't think I'll be helping them. I think I'll be trying to avoid most of them, because what we see in an economic collapse, and whether it's a false flag triggers martial law or economic collapse does, economic collapse will be part of the initial scenario. You can count on it. And that means within 2 to 3 days, the grocery stores are going to be emptied. There's no real-time delivery, just-in-time delivery to your stores any longer. And those that are prepared will have to fight off those who are not prepared. And when they're 20 years old, and I'm getting up there in years, I mean, I was a martial artist, but that was 40 years ago. That ain't now.
But you can still pull a trigger.
I can pull a trigger, exactly. And the bottom line is, though, is some of these people you just mentioned, they haven't prepared. They can't see beyond their iPhone. That's why one guy fell 70 feet to his death in the middle of a city in a construction zone as he was texting. So we need to be worried about these people. I'll help who I can, but I won't compromise family security or community security. Unfortunately, I live in rural America, and I have neighbors that listen to my show, and so I've got a lot of like-minded people out here, so I feel like I'm pretty lucky, or luckier than most. And I will tell people, if you're not preparing now, you're preparing for being 6 feet under. Actually, you'll be in a FEMA body bag is what you'll be in.
Whoa, or a FEMA coffin. Here's a question for you. It says, what will the police and military do when there's no money to be paid to them during the collapse?
The collapse, put it this way, we have real data now that we can look at from recent events. When do police and fire leave their positions? On average, it's between 3 to 5 days, depending on the severity of the crisis. They will choose family over position, and I can't blame them. I would probably do the same thing.
All right, here's another one. It says, if someone had a lot of money but not prepared, do you think they could buy their way to survive during the martial law? Would money be any use if somebody had it?
Your money will be good for keeping you warm at night when you're burning the fire.
I can see that.
When the collapse starts, your cash will mean nothing.
Or your credit cards. They won't mean anything either. But I tell you what, if I would say, Dave, if I saw if I had a few days and I saw that coming, I would just get the charge card out and max that thing out. Who cares after that? They can't come after you.
It's interesting you'd said that because I remember Art Bell did an interview years ago, and he asked someone from one of the credit card companies about that. They go, yeah, because if we don't fully collapse, you have to pay it. Mm-hmm. And if you do, if things do collapse, who cares if it goes south and you don't get the money back?
Right.
So I agree with you. I would do the same thing.
Yeah, well, you're right. 100 million people charging up. I mean, there's just no way to go after them. And, there's no way to rebuild a system. The computers are going to blow up anyway. It's not like it can recover after the event if normalcy ever returned. Well, Dave, we're getting near the end of the broadcast. I appreciate you coming on the Edge Television broadcast. Any final words or thoughts, of website, anything like that, anything we didn't cover?
Yeah, real quickly. Thank you, Daniel. I just want to mention scene.life, SEEN.life. Get in there, get to know other people, like-minded people. There's a lot to learn. It's the alternative to Facebook and Zuckerberg, who people tell me is the grandson of David Rockefeller. Mm-hmm. And then, catch my website, thecommonsenseshow.com. And my show airs on Sunday evenings from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern. And you can simply go to my website there, and I have a Listen to Dave on the right-hand column on the upper right side. Now, Daniel, it's been a great pleasure to be on. You have a terrific show, and it's always an honor to speak with you and react to your audience.
Okay. Very good, Dave. I appreciate you coming on. We'll have you on again sometime. How about that?
All right. Sounds good to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, my friend.
Bye-bye.
All right, everybody, that was Dave Hodges of the Common Sense Show back with us here on the Edge Television broadcast. Appreciate all the great questions that came in. And now, next week, James Perloff will be with the program talking about global destruction. Maybe some of the things we learned tonight from old Dave will help us during that global destruction and see how he says that's going to come this way. 2 weeks, May 7th, Shannon Ray Davis is going to be doing a mass exorcism right here on the Edge Television broadcast. And then Dr. Kevin Randall after that. Well, appreciate everybody in the program. There's Kentucky Girl saying wonderful interview. And James West says, thank you, Dave. Tony in Louisiana says, good show. Thanks, Daniel and Jade. Jade is the driver. She's the anchor of the program. We're keeping things going. Grandma says, great show tonight. Thanks, Daniel and Jade. Appreciate all the kind comments. If we haven't had a guest on the program you'd like to see, just drop me a line, edgeam@yahoo.com, or anywhere on the Edge's website, whatever link that gets you to an email type thing. You can actually put it through the Fast Blast too as well. Remember, when you put something through the Fast Blast, it's a one-way ticket. If you want me to respond, you have to put your email in there. It won't say where it's from. It'll give you a little bit of anonymity there here at the broadcast. So we're tracking your IP, so we know who you are anyway. Let's put Yahweh first. Says, good night, John Boy. Tom Jones in the UK says, great show tonight, Daniel and Jay. Well, Tom in the UK, man, stay safe out there, man. Hope you guys break free from the tyranny of the EU, man, because that thing just seems like it's falling apart, man. Maybe you'll be able to secure your borders over there, because I don't think the European Union wants the borders secured. They want that thing wide open. They want the Middle East to merge right with it, man. And I'm telling you, it is Thanksville if the Muslims come, the Middle East people just look, man. They're going to. I tell you what, the Middle Easterners, they're going to do for the Europe what they did for their self. And if you take a look around, it ain't that good. And there's put Yahweh first. It looks like it has a picture of me on the $20 bill in my rightful place. Actually, as I said earlier, only presidents should be on U.S. money. Maybe one day we'll see Barack on there. What do you think? What's his real name? Ain't nobody know. All right, Daniel Ott for the Edge. Bye-bye.